is none this evening. Number 8, general business. 8A, consideration of the approval of resolution 2012 dash, we got a number there?
Sure, I will get one.
Providing for the issuance and sale of $695,000 general obligation tax abatement bonds, Series 2012A, and pledging tax abatements for the security and payment thereof. David Drown, I assume?
Me.
Welcome, sir.
How do I do up here?
Please. David Drown of David Drown Associates will be present to share the results of the bond sale as concluded earlier on Monday, February 13th. Resolution and information will be provided at the meeting.
Thank you. We normally have to suffer through Michael Bonney.
I don't know how to respond to that.
Oh, wow.
Except I know Mike, so I don't see. I think Mike, in his way, would have walked you through the logic and the background of the borrowing that you're doing for your levy project. I'm basically here to report on the results of the competitive sale process that you previously authorized. We distributed bidding information to the banks and underwriters around the state of Minnesota, including your local lenders, and encouraged them to submit bids for the purchase of bonds. We got 2 bids. They're summarized on the yellow sheet. Okay, local banking folks, to my knowledge, did not participate in this process, but we did try to give them an opportunity. And we did get just 2 bids. Northland Securities, if you look at that bold number on the far right, bid a proposal produced a net interest rate of about 3.1%. Cronin and Company bid 3.44%. When Michael talked to you a while ago about the interest rate to expect on this, he was talking to you about a number closer to 4%. This is a lot better than that. I say that's due to 3 reasons. One, Mike always shoots a little conservatively here. That's part of it. The second part of it is interest rates are lower now than they were a few weeks ago. It's part of the savings. And the third thing is that we ended up utilizing a state of Minnesota program that will allow us to use a state guarantee on your bonds as long as these are bonds for a utility purpose. This is basically building a levee, which is a drainage facility. Okay? So we had you authorize us to try to pursue that process. We did convince the state that this was something that their guarantee could be put on. It costs you $500 and lowers your interest rate significantly. So bottom line, this is all good news. All of the numbers that you talked about in terms of figuring out how to pay for this thing were a lot bigger numbers than you're looking at now. I can walk you through that real quickly. This is a cash flow schedule. Probably looks like something Mike walked you through in the past. But it's a document that on the bottom shows what the bond payments would be on an annual basis and what the revenue requirements are going to be. Okay? If you look at the lower left portion of the sheet, and I know these are little numbers, but bond payments are the numbers shown there in bold. Okay? So after we wait a few years for the project to get done, we're looking at annual payments that are $45,000 to $50,000 a year. The revenues are shown to the right, and there are tax levies and then property tax abatements. You went through a process to create a property tax abatement. That's a main source of revenue to me. It's all property tax dollars, okay, basically, but it's a way to get there from here under Minnesota law. I didn't bring the old schedules with me, but they would have been several $1,000s of more payment and more revenue per year. So it's a pretty good result. Based on the bids, they are consistent with market conditions. I see no reason, if you need to do the project, I would recommend that you move forward, accept the low bid of Northland Securities Incorporated, who bid a net interest cost of 3.172. Your bond attorneys should have provided your staff with a copy of a resolution that, if you adopt it, will accomplish that. I'm here to answer general questions or questions on the bonds.
So if this bond would become cheaper, could you go in and reapply for a cheaper rate of interest?
Municipal bonds can be refinanced, but, fairly big but, it's not like a bank loan where you can go in next week and pay it off and redo it. To make bonds saleable, bonds carry something called call protection. And that's a promise to the investors that for a period of time, you won't do precisely that. This bond issue has 8 years of call protection. So you won't be able to do what you suggested for 8 years without getting tricky about it. These are about as low a interest rates I've seen in my career. So I think the likelihood of market conditions improving enough to warrant refunding is pretty slim. So, yes, you'll be able to, but not for a few years.
Any questions?
Did the size of the bond have anything to do with that interest rate either? I mean, if it had been more, do you think?
Had it been more, would it be lower?
Yeah,
A smidgen.
just
Okay.
close.
This is a relatively small issue.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, we probably discourage bidder interest because the bonds were sold with a AA+ credit rating. These are bonds that are guaranteed by the state of Minnesota, so they're pretty high quality. Okay? So the bids are good, but you don't see 4 or 5 bidders here, largely because the interest rate is lower than a lot of other bonds that people could invest in.
So meaning that over a period of, what is this, 40 years?
I think this one goes out to 35, which
35.
is 20,
So that's $1 million burden on the taxpayers.
You betcha. You bet. Borrowing $750,000 and you'll add another $350,000 to pay interest on it over time, unless you accelerate the payments in a few years when you'll be able to do it.
And this is backed by the state of Minnesota.
This is backed by the full faith and credit of the city, further backed up by the state of Minnesota.
Okay, so I'm just curious, because we go through the state, I mean, we're doing the payment ourselves, I mean, we don't give it to the state and then the state makes the payment.
Nope, the way it works quite candidly is you have to make your payment about 3 days before the scheduled bond payment is due.
Okay,
If for some reason you don't make that payment, the trustee will notify the state and say, hey, I sure didn't make their payment. The state will make the payment for you, and then they'll hunt you down like a dog and make sure that you pay the state back. That's really how it works. But their involvement probably saves us a good solid quarter of percentage point in terms of added interest cost. And over time, that's quite a bit of money. So it was, it's certainly worth doing.